But the angel says, don't fear. This is a child from the Holy Spirit. And so we step back and need to affirm something about Christmas, and that is that Christmas is actually founded upon a miracle. Christmas is founded upon a miracle. The virgin birth is not just part of the story. It's not just something that happened. It is a bona fide miracle and the crux of the whole event. In fact, I would even ask you to ponder this. Let's have a little fun together. How important is the virgin birth to your Christian faith? How important is it? If somehow you came to the conclusion that Joseph actually was Jesus' dad, and that he was born just like everybody else, and that this was some ruse to cover up a shame, would that change anything for you? Would it bother you theologically? You know, it's become fashionable in recent years, actually, maybe you've seen it, to cast doubt, even by mainstream evangelicals, to cast doubt upon the virgin birth of Christ while still trying to hold to the rest of Christianity. It's often asked, is this essential to the faith? Meaning, like, if you don't believe it, there are strings attached to your very salvation. That's what essential means. Like, this is core. So, for example, we would say the bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ is absolutely essential to your salvation. Would you agree? Okay, good. You're in the right church. Just wanted to make sure. But what about the virgin birth? Does a Christmas miracle belong in the same category as an Easter miracle? So, megachurch pastor Andy Stanley thinks not. Maybe you've never heard this before, but he said, if someone can predict their own death and their own resurrection, I'm not that concerned about how they got into the world. And he would go on to say, Christianity does not hinge on the truth of the stories around the birth of Jesus. Interesting. If you know somebody in the Atlanta area, you might want to tell them that. Former noteworthy pastor Rob Bell, in his book, Velvet Elvis, compares Christianity to a trampoline supported by many springs around the outside of the trampoline, and muses in his book, what if the spring of the virgin birth was removed from the trampoline? Could you not still jump and enjoy the trampoline? Clearly, his assumption is any one spring removed doesn't change the whole trampoline. I should note, Rob Bell has since walked away from his faith. Is he right? Let me give you my view. The virgin birth is the paramount miraculous claim of the Christian story and is absolutely an essential doctrine. Here's why I say so. If Jesus was not born of the Holy Spirit, you'd have a really big follow-up question to ask. Who then is Jesus' daddy? And that's a big question. Was it Joseph? Was it another man? My next follow-up question would be, how then can we be certain that Jesus is God in the flesh? If he was born just like you and me, did he become the Son of God at a later point? And my next follow-up question would be, if he was born by a man and woman like everybody else, how can we be sure he did not possess a sin nature and is truly the sinless Son of God? If we cannot guarantee Jesus was the sinless Son of God incarnate, we now have reason to doubt his ability to atone for the sins of the world on the cross, to satisfy the wrath of God by absorbing it in such a way that only the God-man could do. If Jesus was born of man and woman, we have to question his deity. So how can he be our perfect mediator and intercessor? Because he would no longer be able to represent both God perfectly and both man perfectly. How could he reconcile? So church, listen to me. If you lose the virgin birth, you stand to lose everything. And if you say, but Pastor, it's impossible. Right. That's the point. It's a miracle to set apart Jesus from every other person on the earth. There would only be one God-man. And yes, there are stories and legends and myths. I know about Mithra and Horus and Isis and the so-called pagan virgin birth stories. But listen, Jesus was a historical person. He didn't have the head of a falcon like Horus, okay? He lived and walked among historical people and was recorded by Josephus and Tacitus and Suetonius, crucified under Pontius Pilate, and actually changed the world. The virgin birth is the anchor miracle of Christmas. Christmas is supposed to make you say, wow, not because of the gifts under the tree, but because of how it came to be. What a better way to remember. It all started with a supernatural miracle, a Christmas miracle. Nothing beats the virgin birth.